Thanks for tuning in. We're Ace Comicals. I have with me my co-host Rahul Jani and Leon Everett. I'm Greg Driver. Let's get started. Proton packs and half-shell ninjas, supernatural battling gravediggers, and a trippy nightmare in the dark multiverse. And that's just my list. Welcome to episode 22 of Ace Comicals. So, today we have the full gang. Everyone's here. Both of my co-hosts. So I've got Ray and Leon.
Hello.
Hey.
So guys, I'm going to start with a confession.
Here we go.
I've gotten into Riverdale.
Well.
Finally.
I've put it off for so long. I was looking at it on the surface as this, this gaudy teen drama that I wouldn't enjoy because it's not usually my thing.
But it turned out to be a gaudy teen drama that you did enjoy, right?
Yes, because it's not actually a gaudy teen drama. It's like it's poking fun at gaudy teen drama. That's the way I'm looking at it anyway. It's like a parody almost. Like it takes things to such an extreme and I don't know. Kind of the way that Twin Peaks did for soap operas, I guess. I don't know if you agree with me.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of influence from Twin Peaks in the show, but more in a style capacity than in a broad subject matter way. So there's a definite link there where it uses these constructs of a known genre, especially melodrama, and then really plays with it, but plays with it in a way where you can tell the creators are a fan of that thing, but also know enough about it to be able to poke fun at it and push and pull as much as they can.
And it's down to you, Leon, as well, telling me that Guardia is the showrunner.
Yeah. It's pretty weird, isn't it? Like to have someone who's like, he was the guy who like transformed Archie Comics in a way. And then when it came to doing the TV show, the powers that be just like, yeah, bring it, do what you like.
This is the man that modernised Archie and is now the man who seems to be running the show, which is pretty good.
But on paper, doesn't it sound terrible?
It does, yeah.
It's like, oh, we're going to make a sexy version of Archie Comics. Like, it sounds like a parody you'd see on SNL or something.
It does. It sounds
like a bad
joke.
It
does sound awful, but then it's played out in such a way that it's actually really enjoyable. And there's so many little nods and like little bits and pieces in there that I've picked up on that are nods to other characters that have been published in like Pep Comics and stuff, or like
yeah, you've been like a bloodhound.
Like comic was just, I'm not even looking for it. It's just there in my face. It's not like I'm pausing it and going through every frame or anything like that. It's just...
Yeah, but like I only picked up like very minor basic ones, and my wheelhouse is more picking up all the literary references and the references to like other media. But then you're like there with a fine-tooth comb and a magnifying glass and like, oh, by the way, guys, it references this thing as well. I was like, what? How did you see that?
I don't know how far you guys have seen. Have you?
I'm
up to date. Are you up to date, Ray?
No, I've only seen season 1.
Ah, okay, right. Well, I won't say anything more then. But there's some, like, even throughout season 1, there's like little nods to sort of comic history, as in comic history as far as Pep Comics and Archie Comics and stuff like that goes, and things like that. And even more so in season 2 as well. There's like all these little bits that they just sort of like putting in and pulling from seemingly nowhere, but it's all there, and it's like a, it's great for that, and that is what I think, that's what I'm getting out of it. And when Sophie's watching it, I keep sort of like walking into the room and telling her to pause it and then going, fun fact, da 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 da, and then walking away again.
Oh, you're the worst. Especially because she started watching it before you, didn't she? The trailblazer in the house.
She was watching it before me, and I caught bits and pieces when she was watching it. And then it's kind of like, one day I just found myself sitting there with nothing to do and nothing to watch. I thought, you know what, we'll give Riverdale a go. I'm probably going to hate it, but we'll give Riverdale a go. And I was hooked, and I've pretty much binged it. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's my favorite kind of melodrama where it's just really attractive people doing really heightened things. I love it.
I like it.
Yeah, it is.
I like this.
I was just going to say, it's leaning really heavy into some of these things, which I really enjoy, like just some of the genre niches and some of the just outright weird stuff. Like they're really not messing around.
The OTT parody stuff of it, and I can't wait for them to start leaning into the Archie horror stuff, because when they start doing that and they start like doing the Sabrina stuff, and maybe which we know that they're thinking about the Sabrina stuff because we've read little rumors, and people that work on the show have already said, well, yeah, but not for another couple seasons, kind of thing,
And they've mentioned Greendale.
Yeah, Greendale gets brought up, and yeah, no, I can't wait for them to do it.
Yeah, I really hope they just dive straight into it, because like they haven't really established any sense of like strict realism in this show because it is so heightened. Yeah. So they can definitely pull it off if they want to.
Yeah, I'm hoping they have their cake and eat it. Like, be as supernatural as they like, but then the next episode they can still like fawn about in high school and do stuff.
Well, yeah, I mean that's the beauty of the comics as well. It kind of has that and the supernatural stuff, but neither one feels like it's taking a back seat for the other, which is really cool. And the I just like you're saying, like the hyper blown outness of everything that happens in that show. It like I was saying before, it's like a hyper parody of teen melodrama. It's like teen,
because everything's the most important thing that's happening to these people.
It's teen melodrama to like the nth level, which I think I enjoy about it because it is. It's like it's making fun of itself. Yeah,
it's a beautiful show as well.
It is.
It is gorgeously shot. Yeah.
Like they make Riverdale just look like this. Like I think of it as sort of not a hick town, but like sort of like a flyover state from what I get from the comics. Yeah. And in this, it's sort of more like a suburb, and it's like green and has like Sweet River or whatever. It's a lot more
Sweetwater River.
It's a lot more northwestern and like a bit more metro. There's stuff going on in the town, and it walks this weird divide between being modern enough that they can reference stuff that we have now, but then the style of a lot of things are like that old Archie style, like caught between the 50s and 60s.
All these hangovers and traditions that seem to be left over in the town from,
like Pop's Malt
Shop, when their parents grew up, and that and the drive-in still being the only hangouts. It's great.
No, it's beautiful.
And the way it's shot as well, like some of the way the uses of color and things like that, and the way when it goes between faces when people are talking and stuff. And if you it's like framing of comic panels.
Yeah.
And it just it's a great
and all the locations are really iconic. Like there's something really like hazy and languid about the camera that makes everything seem really important every time it's on screen.
And it's a great it's a great show. Don't do what I did and initially snub it, because it will not do you any favors.
and moreover, even though like in season 1 they have this whole mystery thing going on, it's ultimately a really fun show, and I think it makes a bit of a difference when like most other shows are a bit doom and gloomy. It's nice to have a show that is having fun.
No, it is, and it's great to sort of sit down and watch and catch up on. So Riverdale, there we go. That's my confession. Something else as well. Apparently, we hit 1,000 listens today, but more to the point, Rahul didn't know which turtle was which.
Are we really going to go there? You said you wouldn't bring this up.
Okay.
Did you have like an inkling? Did you feel it? Do you like?
I honestly, every time you mention any of the colours, and like I have no idea which one's which. I'm not sure which turtle holds which staff or which whatever. Like I guess I don't really care. Like I grew up with it as a kid, and I know I've got proof, I've got evidence, I've got photographic evidence of me like being fully in love with the Turtles, and then I grew up, and then all of that knowledge just left my head, but the feeling was left in my heart.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, how dare you throw that in my face? Like, I know I was there at the beginning, just
I'm
like
not throwing it in your face. I just thought it was funny when you said it. The way you said it as well. Is it bad that I had to...
Wow, he's really taking it there. He's really laying on the
just
guilt.
Like I've insulted a family member.
Just for context, this comes from a conversation earlier where Rahul realised that we'd hit 1,000 listens. So he was like, oh, yay, 1,000 listens. Let me and Leon know. And Leon sent us all a GIF of the Ninja Turtles high-fiving. And
You said one of the
designated I designated characters from the GIF to everyone. So I was like, okay, so Rahul, you are Donnie. Leon, you are Leo. And me, I'm Mikey. And...
which one's Donnie again?
Donnie's the purple one, yeah. the science guy. Donnie's the science guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So after that, Rahul then told us that he needed to Google which one was which. And
shaking my damn head right now.
I just thought it was amusing. Being as we talk about Ninja Turtles so much on this show.
I'm always. You might have noticed I'm always very quiet when it comes up.
So
yeah, Donna's cool. She's my favourite turtle.
I love Donna.
Donatella. Donatella works in a bank, right? No, yeah.
Kebab shop.
So yeah, this is just something that I thought was humorous. But yeah, so we hit 1,000 listens. So well,
which is awesome, pretty awesome.
Pretty awesome,
like, we're like been doing this for like since February or so.
Yeah.
And on our 22nd episode, and it's nice. So we're slowly but surely building up repeat listeners, a fan base maybe.
Ooh.
And it's nice to know that people are tuning in and interested to hear what we've said and are happy to spend an hour or more likely 90 minutes listen to us chat crap about comics and stuff. So
yeah,
awesome.
I guess if you are one of those 1,000 listeners, what we really want to say is thank you.
Yeah.
It was the whole reason for bringing.
We're super
the
grateful.
biggest reason for bringing this up was to say thank you.
As long as you know which turtles.
Yeah. Which
I'm never going to listen to this again.
Which brings me on to my first comic, actually, which is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Ghostbusters.
Segue.
Mike is on mute.
The second outing, TMNT Ghostbusters II. So this is the second time the Turtles and the Ghostbusters have kind of been together, rubbed packs and shells, so to speak. Again, it's Eric Burnham and Dan Schoening with Tom Waltz as well. We've also got Luis Antonio Delgado and Dave Watcher. So it's the same team as last time, but we're getting like guest artists jumping in. I mean, with issue 2 as well, there's a couple of other artists that have jumped on. We've got Tad Galusha, Pablo Tunica, Mark Torres. Basically every single... Because the way they've done this is, as they move through different dimensions, it's a different art style and a different artist. So it's another dimension hopping adventure, kind of like the first one, where they end up in each other's versions of New York and everything else. Darius Dunn, who was a boss of a gang in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles comics called the Street Phantoms. They're a high-tech gang that have been going toe-to-toe with the Foot in New York, and that arc ended with the death of Darius Dunn. So he's now a literal phantom, and he's seeking revenge on the Turtles. Now, we know from previous Ghostbusters comics and from Eric Burnham and Dan Schoening sort of continuity, we'll call it, that ghosts exist as insulation between dimensions. So they're like kind of like the insulation. Darius Dunn's sitting there just, all salty as hell, watching the Turtles, watching Splinter, and he's like, damn it, I want my revenge. So he calls forth a group of sort of like extraplanar beings or demons, extra-dimensional things called the Collectors. The Collectors are like demonic entities who take away marked people for the price of a summoner's soul and sanity. So you can summon them to get people, but at the price of your mind and your soul. These guys come after the Turtles, the Turtles kind of narrowly escape, and Donnie uses the Turtles' version of the portal, which is the way they get to the Ghostbusters New York the first time, to get to Egon to ask for help. They split into teams with the Ghostbusters, so they pair up. Each one goes through the portal to a different plane. They travel through different planes of existence and different dimensions to try and put the collectors off their scent, basically, while Egon and Donnie work on a solution so they can permanently put the collectors out of action. And I think it's a really cool story. I really like what they do with this, the way they've got like all these like different dimensions and different New Yorks and things like that, and that each dimension is by a different artist as well. Really gives it a feel that you are looking at something different. You're looking at a different place, a different time, a different reality or world or whatever, and it makes it easier for you to visualize what's happening, because it looks different, I guess, which I really like. I like the diversity of the styles in the comics, and you know, when I'm sure you've probably seen a similar technique used in cartoons when you guys have watched cartoons, when people maybe move through different places or countries or worlds, and each one is drawn in a different style. Like I've seen it used a lot in cartoons where like they go through different art styles, like abstract and surrealism and whatever else, like all in one episode, just as some kind of like some sort of reality altering experiment goes wrong or something like that. Maybe in an episode of Dexter's Lab, I don't know, and this happens over a course of about 5 or 6 panels for like about 3 minutes. But yeah, I mean, to carry on doing this in a weekly book with like different artists for each thing, because I think the book has been weekly, hasn't it? Because I had one last week, and then I think it has been weekly.
How do you keep up with a weekly book?
You buy it every week. Simple, man. You go to the comic book store, you go to the guy at the counter, and you're like, "Yo, dude, check my folder. Is my book there?" And he's like, "Yep, here it is." No, but yeah, it's I think it's great, and I really like what they're doing. I really like that it's a celebration of Turtles and Ghostbusters, and it is a celebration of what makes both of them great, to be honest. And the way it brings them together is fantastic. I'm really enjoying it, especially like seeing the Ghostbusters drawn in, because you've got like one point where Leonardo and Winston end up in the 1989 TMNT animated universe. So they end up in the Turtles lair, and Winston is drawn as if he'd been drawn in the Fred Wolf style kind of thing. So the Fred Wolf animated Turtles kind of thing. And I think that's really cool. I quite like that. And there's a ninja ghost, and they fight the ninja ghost. But yeah, it's pretty fun. It's Turtles, it's Ghostbusters. Of course, I was always going to love it, but I think you guys should pick it up too, especially with issue 1 as well. The cover being a nod to, you know, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2 live action film, the early 90s one. Yeah. You know, the Secret of the Ooze poster with the 4 turtles looking over the broken ooze canister. I think it's a broken ooze canister. It might just be an ooze canister. But it's it's not. It is a broken ooze canister. I was right. Yeah. So it's that, but they're looking over a ghost trap instead. And
I think I've seen.
Yeah,
this.
And you've got the Ghostbusters in the background behind them, and Egon's reading Tobin's Spirit Guide. And I just think it's a really cool cover. I like that it's an homage to that poster.
So do you think this works for not just people who have a passing enjoyment historically with Turtles or Ghostbusters, but do you think it works with people who are completely like fresh or divorced from this all?
I think you could, because it gives you enough exposition to be able to pick up the book and just read it like as a jumping on point, I guess. So there's enough exposition there to be able to pick it up and read it and be like, okay, cool, I know what's happening, because it explains a lot. And IDW have do this really cool thing where they do this what came before thing at the start of the comic, where they have like a quick summary in words, and then the comic starts, and it also introduces the characters as well. So on the beginning of the book, it will introduce each character that appears in the book, so it like gives you a quick little background as to who's who. So you're never going in cold, kind of thing. So yeah, you could pick it up and you could know what was happening, because you get enough exposition to be able to just pick it up and read and enjoy it, which is the cool thing about it as well. So yeah, that one gets a 5 out of 5 for me. I think that one was a real treat.
Oh.
They're always going to get 5 out of 5. It's like two of my favourite writers. It's Tom Waltz and Eric Burnham. Tom Waltz is like a regular Turtles writer in the IDW stuff, and Eric Burnham does all the Ghostbusters stuff. And when those two come together, it's like, because they really know how to handle the properties they're working on and the characters. Like, they've shown and proven themselves so many times that they know how to write these guys and they know what to do. That when they come together and they write a story like this, how can it go wrong, you know?
It's nice to hear that it's all still working, and they're putting like really interesting people on the titles.
Well, that's it. This is what I love about it.
It's cool that they're both still about. I mean, I know that we're in a time now of people our age and slightly older having nostalgia for back then, so a lot of the things that we grew up liking are back in the public consciousness, but it is nice that both Turtles and Ghostbusters seem to be almost timeless and have endured.
They're going strong, and as far as the comics go, they've both got great teams behind them, which I think helps.
Yeah, the way you describe it makes it sound like it's not like pandering the way that some things
it's
are
not.
To the nostalgia factor that Leon just mentioned.
It's not. It's it does have, obviously from time to time it has a little bit of fan service in there. There's like little things. I mean, in some of the first Ghostbusters comics, the Schoening and Burnham ones, when you like look at some of the panels, you've got like some of the ghosts from the real Ghostbusters just sort of drawn into the background, like spot the troll from the real Ghostbusters Trollbridge episode or whatever, and things like that. But it's really nice how they do it, and it's nice how they, like, obviously they do different things, and they do change some things like slightly and whatever, but it's never jarring, and it's never to a point that you would disagree with it. It's not, if you know, like when you know an established character, and if they suddenly change that character so much that it's not that, you know, sometimes you get that where they take a character and they change that character so much that it's not that character anymore, and you don't want to read it anymore because you're like, oh, that's not what I know, kind of thing. And I don't, you're just so preoccupied with the fact that it's so different that you can't connect with it like you used to be able to. Whereas with this, it's kind of like they've done it, they've changed it, but they've not changed it so much that it changes the way you look at these characters and the way you interact with these characters and the way what you take away from these stories and things like that. It's still fun, and it's still the Ghostbusters, and it's still the Turtles, and it's great. And like some of the new additions to the Turtles, especially with the Turtles continuity, some of the new additions to the Turtles characters as well, like some of these new characters and mutants that they've added in are fantastic. I really like the what they've done with the mutanimals, and I like what they've done with some of the especially in the TMNT universe book, especially what they've done with the mutants that hang out with Karai, which I think is really nice. But yeah, both fantastic books. So yeah, I mean obviously there's so many comics where they've tried to bring back something from our era, our childhoods or whatever, and they've missed the mark entirely because it's just not had the quality behind it. It's just been really ham-fisted the way they've dealt with it, and it's just not had the quality behind it, and it's not had the thought process behind it and everything else. But these two are still going strong, and I think it's testament to the fact that they've got decent teams behind them. So yeah, definitely enjoyed those two. Moving on to another new book that I picked up, which is on Image Comics, which is the Gravediggers Union. We've got the story by Wes Craig and the art by Toby, Cypress and Niko Guardia. Now, Toby Cypress is the guy that does the art for Retcon. So, cool. Yeah, and he does the kind of like page 5 onwards in this book. So the first 5 pages are by the writer Wes Craig, and then after that Toby Cypress takes over. The cover is also by Wes Craig, and I really like the cover. I like the kind of like in your face green writing and this black cloud with purple eyes, and like these like angry looking gravediggers. They're not wearing any special equipment. They're not like special guys that need like proton packs or anything like that to fight monsters. They literally just have shovels and picks, right? They are gravediggers, okay? And they are taking on the apocalypse, the supernatural apocalypse. Like, the world is ending. It's kind of like, imagine global warming, but if everything, like all these superstorms and whatever, were like hurricanes made of ghosts and earthquakes caused by zombies coming out of the ground and stuff like that, and the dead rising from the grave and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, like obviously it's kind of, I think there's a whole line of like global warming running through it, like especially in one of the starting panels there's this whole news flash panel, and it says like that on Biz feed, supernaturalist totally owns ghost denier. So it's obviously this whole climate change thing, and it's like this ghost storm disasters and whatever, so it's to do with that.
Sounds like a cool take on it.
It's like a cool take on climate change. And you've got this union, these gravediggers, which are like overworked, underappreciated fighters of the supernatural that sort of keep the peace and save us basically from these guys, put these threats back down where they belong, like rebury bodies and things like that. But like obviously the way this book opens, so this is like, that's the bit where the Toby Cypress bit starts. Before that, you've got the first 5 pages, which are by Wes Craig, and it's got this kind of like Lovecraftian 2001 Space Odyssey thing going on, because you open it and you are immediately confronted by 4 panels that sort of show you the universe and space and stars, and then you're seeing Earth, and you're seeing this black mass of eyeballs, kind of like a tree type thing in the ground, and like, black writhing mass that seems to be controlling early man. You've got these like ape-like guys like carrying this green sludge sacks. Don't know what they're doing with them, but they're carrying them. Maybe they're feeding this thing. And then one guy decides he's going to drop his sludge sack, and he starts shouting. Obviously, what he's shouting isn't written because it's like early man grunt and stuff. All the others like look at him and then turn on him because they're all being controlled by this thing. So they all turn on him and start, like, they kill him basically, and then they carry on with what they were doing. And it's just like, and then from there, bam, straight into modern day.
So it's like a weird sort of cold open.
Yeah, I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to build in the fact that this is something that's been brewing since the dawn of time, and we've had this like whatever this force is still on Earth, and it's still beneath the surface, and it's bubbling away, kind of thing. And the book ends with one of the gravediggers basically has to seek out a witch to help figure out what's going on, because there are witches, but the gravediggers are forbidden from interacting with witches, even though witches, are helpful from time to time, opposite sides of the rails or whatever, but they're helpful from time to time. So he decides he's got to seek out a witch, and I think this witch is his own daughter, but obviously we'll find out in issue 2. So yeah, it's a great book. It's a great story. I like the Lovecraftian horror. I like the cold open. I love the cold open, and I love this. I'd want more of these silent panels, basically, of these early man creatures like doing this thing's bidding. I think that's brilliant. I like the monster designs because and the fantastic grotesqueness of it. And it's like the comedic horror as well with some of these monster designs and the way they fight these monsters. And with it being the artist from Retcon, it's one of the things that I also loved about Retcon the fact that he, because of his sort of like his abstract and like sort of his abstraction, his style, the way he draws, and the surrealism and the looseness of it, when he does his monster designs, they come across really grotesque and really, really graphic and cool, which is what I like about this as well. Some of the monster designs in it are fantastic, and the first 5 pages as well, like Wes Craig's art, it's obviously totally different to Toby Cypress. Wes Craig's art in those first 5 pages really nails down the tone, because you've got like these like this like bright red sky and this volcano in the background, and everything's in shadow. You know, everything is black and green apart from this bright red backdrop and this bright red sky and these piercing yellow eyes bubbling away and this black mass in the background, and it's just brilliant. As soon as I opened this book, I was just like, yeah.
It does sound very much up your alley.
It is, yeah. It's this whole cosmic horror of it. This basically, I get the impression that this huge, strange entity is going to be pulling the strings and is the source of all the supernatural torment in the world. But we'll see what happens. So that one's another straight shooter. So if you're looking for a decent new book to pick up, I'd recommend Gravedigger's Union. Batman Lost is the next one on my list. So again, like the segue here, because we're getting some huge cosmic demonic force going from one possibly cosmic demonic force to another cosmic demonic force, which is within Batman Lost, which this being part of the DC Metal event. So as if you've listened to previous shows, I've talked about DC Metal. I've talked about what I'm enjoying about these comics and things like that. And like this is kind of like it's a Batman history lesson, and it's also showing us what is happening while the events of Metal thus far have unfolded. So the art is by Oliver Copiel and Bengal. The cover is by Bengal, and it is written by Scott Snyder. The cover itself, I've got the book in front of me here. You've got like the giant bat basically sitting in kind of like, I don't know, red flames behind Batman with a batarang ready. He's trying to make his way through the dark multiverse and find a way back, basically, in this book. Barbatos is playing with his head. So we start off, we've got like a vision of the future. We've got old Bruce Wayne telling his granddaughter a story, and he's got all of these like famous Batman stories, because he's like, I'd forget them if I didn't write them down. And she goes over to the bookshelf, and there's all the Batman stories lined up on the bookshelf, and you've got Nightfall, you've got like Hush, you've got all, you know, like all these Batman stories lined up. So imagine it like someone's comic library lined up on the shelf.
Yeah.
And
That's pretty cool.
It starts with a window. So we all know about the window, right? I mean, if you think about Batman Year One, where the bat comes crashing through the window, and that's how Batman decides to be a bat.
Yeah.
It's like it's all comes back to that, and that bat is supposedly Barbatos. It's all Barbatos is doing. Barbatos has decided that he was, you know, from the very start, he's been grooming Batman to become Batman. And it brings in basically Batman gets to look from the outside in on stories that he's taken part in. So like on his own history, basically, and you get visions of the future as well. But the most interesting ones that stuck out to me is the mention of the first ever Batman story. So you've got like we get shown the first ever Batman story, basically, because this is the one that his granddaughter chooses, and it is the case of the Chemical Syndicate, which was the first printed Batman story in Detective Comics number 27, which was May 1939. So that's where it opens, and it's Batman talking about his first ever story, and we've got like a costume design within those panels that is a riff on that first costume design. You also get the a look at, you know, the when I talked about Dark Knight, Dark City, because I read it because of the mention of Barbatos in that, where they were trying to summon Barbatos under Gotham, and then the Riddler gets the idea that he's going to do that, and he's been preparing Batman via various trials to become like the vessel for Barbatos, to allow Barbatos into our world. And that he gets to see that as well. He gets to see the first part of that where you've got the people in, I think it was like the 1800s or the early 1900s or something, performing a ritual underneath a house in Gotham in a basement, and then seeing something outside, being spooked, because I've obviously seen the demon, being spooked and locking the young girl that they were going to sacrifice in the basement forever, which Batman then stumbles across the skeleton during the Dark Knight Dark City story. But he's like looking out from the outside in at that, and it's Batman trying to get his mind back and trying to get through the dark multiverse, clawing his way back to our world, back to Earth Zero. But obviously, you know, you'd have to buy the book to find out whether he manages to do it or not.
It sounds a bit like Batman: A Christmas Carol.
Yes and no.
Ghosts of Batman's past.
Yes and no. It's more,
which we've already kind of had in one of the Halloween stories.
Yeah, that was like Batman: A Halloween Carol, but it's more. It's not like that. It's like they take him back to the dawn of time and they show him warring tribes at the dawn of time, like the Bat and the Hawk and everything else, or the Bat and the Bird, and like they show him like the future with like Damian Wayne, and they show him another future with gangs of, or is this maybe from, I think that's from another Batman story actually, I think I'm just getting confused now, but they show him all kinds of stuff like the Court of Owls and everything, like they basically just shows you and lists what's been happening behind the scenes the whole time. So this is Barbatos saying all these times, everything that has happened in all these various universes and whatever, everything, I have controlled it all. I have been preparing you this whole time to be my vessel, to allow me into this world. And this is what's happening to Batman while he's missing, while everything is going on in the main Metal story. So I was blown away by it actually. I thought it was really cool the way that it uses Batman history and the way that it uses old Batman stories like that and manages to kind of like knit them together. I thought that was I thought it was something.
Do you find it like them using this sort of, not retconny, but like going back to the history? Do you find that like an effective way to explore the Batman mythos and character, or does it feel a bit retconny for retconny's sake? It
doesn't feel retconny at all, because I don't think it's retconny in the fact that what he's doing is he's just using moments that people have already said is Barbatos, or people have theorised is Barbatos, and what he's doing is he's just knitting it all together, and it's kind of like Batman looking from the outside in and seeing it happen as it happened in the original comic, but then Barbatos just saying over the top of it, you see, this is why I did this and whatever else kind of thing in narration. So I don't think it's retconny at all. I think it's actually clever the way that Snyder has gone back through Batman history and picked out specific moments and then knitted them together as some kind of preparation of Batman for what's now unfolding in the Metal event. I thought that was quite cool the way they did that, and I think that is an effective way to explore Batman as well, to explore the story and explore the mythos. Yeah, definitely, to explore the character himself.
Is this just one issue, or is it a whole
It's one
book?
issue.
And do you know how, is it like an ongoing run?
No.
Because it sounds like the kind of thing I want to pick up, because I get the feeling that I would probably disagree with you on this, because I tend not to like these stories where they've not retconned it, but they've retroactively tried to stitch together a story by picking out their favourite parts, and sometimes it feels really cheap, and if it's done well, it can be really, really effective. So I definitely want to check this out based on that, just to see how I feel about it.
It's done pretty well. I think it's done pretty well. There's a huge team on the book, like huge team. Like, it's not just Snyder. Like, Snyder's like the main guy, and obviously the main artist is Copiel and Bengal. But because it's part of the Dark Knight's Metal stuff, and it's a tie-in for Metal, so it's not an ongoing thing or anything like that. It's just a one-shot tie-in for Dark Knight's Metal, and it explains what's happening to Batman as the rest of the Metal events are unfolding. But I just really connected with it and thought it was really cool, and just liked being shown Batman's history and having it all knitted together and being told, look, it's all Barbatos. I kind of like this Barbatos thing, you know. I like the fact that Batman is Batman because a demon told him to.
Like, how are your thoughts currently on how DC Metal is going? Are you positive on the whole thing so far? Because I've only read the real, like, the beginning, and I'm sort of waiting on the sidelines for some big things to collect up and seeing what happens when the dust settles before I jump back in.
I've been reading it as it happens, and I've been enjoying it. I've been enjoying the story so far. I've been getting on with it pretty well. I think it will be good to read it all, binge it all at once it's all there. Because I think I'll probably get a different impression of it if I binge it all together rather than reading it one by one, like I have been doing. So if I binge it all in order, because there's going to be a specific order to it. So if I binge it all in order when it's all out, and I get the events in place, rather than reading it one by one as it comes out. And I mean, I'm getting the idea of what fits where and everything, but it's always better to binge it all together. So once it's all together, I will binge it all together, and I will be able to tell you exactly how good it is. But at the moment, I'm really enjoying it, and I'm just reading it one by one. So, but yeah, no, I think it's a good. I think as far as events go, this for me, this has been one of like the better big events in recent years. Like as far as comic events go, so I'm definitely enjoying this one.
That's a positive sign, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like I read Venomverse, and while Venomverse was big stupid fun, it was, you know, wasn't anything compared to this. This is meticulously put together, meticulously thought out, and it's stuff that Snyder has been working towards since his days writing the New 52 Batman stuff. So, because it's all there as well in the New 52 Batman, it's something that he's been building up to. So it's something that he's been thinking about for a very long time, and you can tell like through how meticulously put together it is and how well he's worked it all out. So I'm impressed. I do like it, and I'm eagerly awaiting the reveal of the Batman Who Laughs, because we're gonna get his one shot.
Looking forward to that.
Soon.
That might be when I jump back on.
Yeah, because I want to see what makes him tick. We've seen what makes the other Batman tick. I just want to see the other Dark Knights, should I say? They are Batman, but evil, twisted versions of Batman. I just want to see what makes him tick now. My favourite one of the ones that we've been shown so far is the Merciless, which is the Wonder Woman one.
Oh yeah,
that one's really cool. So yeah, I guess that's from one pretty good DC outing, because DC are doing quite well at the moment in my books anyway. So that's one pretty good DC book, decent DC outing in Dark Knight's Metal. We move on to another, which is kind of taking the comic world by storm. People love this, and we love this. It's Mr. Miracle.
Mr. Miracle.
Mr. Miracle, indeed. So, Leon, this is...
Oh, it's so good.
Oh, man, yeah. More than good. It's Tom King and Mitch Gerads good. That's what it is. So this is something that you were sort of wanting to talk about, Leon, wasn't it? So...
Yeah, I mean, as far as I know, we're all up to date with what's out so far. So there's 4 issues out. But yeah, Mr. Miracle, written by Tom King, and the art done by Mitch Gerads. We've spoken about it a bunch on the show already, but it's definitely proceeding in a very interesting way, and it's continuing to surprise and amaze me, because like a couple of episodes ago when reading earlier issues, there was the fear after the first issue that for all its weird existential madness, I was scared that in issue 2 it'd become more conventional, and then issue 2 comes and we're getting the beginnings like of the engagement of like a war storyline, but all of this is still through the lens of this quite internal psychological odyssey that Scott Free is going on, and issues 3 and 4 just continue that, but continue to sort of build the world but in a very personal way. So we're not getting as much sort of cutaways or like jump into other characters. Most of the time we are sticking with Mr. Miracle himself, and like we often have frames like centered on him, or like the 9-panel structure just like centered on him, with the rest of the world sort of on the sides as he sort of not meanders, but as he sort of just sort of struggles forth with all the stuff that's boiling in his head. And it's done so well, and I think the voice on this is quite unique. I mean, issues 3 and 4, I'm not going to go into deep detail, but they cover some interesting ground, where in issue 3 we get more of an idea of like class and how certain people in this structure are more likely to are being killed off quicker and almost being used as like frontline sacrificial lambs in the war effort. And you get this whole sort of uneasiness in this alliance to battle these dark side forces. And like on the side of this war, like no one's really of the mains, no one's really likable, and Orion has proven himself to be that typical type of like leader who like the power just goes to their head, and there's like levels of inadequacy there, and all other types of issues, and they're the very complicated histories that both him and Scott have just weigh up on all of these, and all of this is brought together really well with the art, Gerads' art, which is at times like warped and grainy and like flecked and obfuscating, but also quite like sharp and personal and like not cartoony. And I think it's really effective in sort of connecting you with this story, because in a way still this story is quite dizzying. Like we don't have the full picture yet, so we're constantly bouncing between stuff from Scott's view really, and sometimes it's hard to tell the timeline on some things, and sometimes it's hard to tell what's in Scott's head and what's happening. But you sort of stay invested in the ride because they're building the characters to be quite relatable and like fully formed. So I'm still quite heavily invested in this, and it's been a comic that I do like look forward to each month, and they're just like such like funny little asides and like weird things that they set up, where you have like really dark things, and then the tone is sort of not really undercut but punctuated by like weird comedy. So like there's a very tense interrogation scene which is amazingly like structured and set out, and it's like a set of questions, and like rapid fire, and if answer true or false, and like the lives hang in the balance of this. And like midway through there's a buzz at the door, and like a character goes and collects a package just like midway through, and like it just stuff like that, and like Scott's sort of a nonchalant aloofness with like what could be like really jeopardizing situations are like, I know it's so weird. Like you just want to spend time here, and they're like such odd lines like, have you ever seen the face of a god? Have you ever seen the face of a god? Like I know that it's one of those comics that's doing a really good job of, like I was saying, everyone having a voice. So like when I'm reading it, each character, even if we're only seeing them for like maybe a couple panels each issue, I'm getting a more of a sense of who they are, because I've only really dabbled really with New God stuff and know more about it anecdotally than I do from like digging into the actual issues. So it's I assume there's extra benefit if you've got sort of any encyclopedia knowledge of that. But as someone who doesn't have that and knows it more in passing and in reference, it still works because I know there's a bond there. I know there's a history there.
Yeah. But
ultimately, it's like it's given me what I want from a comic, because I think it's, and I probably said it before, it's demonstrating an interesting way to explore characters who are like godlike, who are sort of out of this world, and it does really bounce between the like internal dread and sort of not knowing yourself and not knowing what lies inside you, with like big out of this world galaxy changing events. So I mean, what have you guys been thinking so far?
I've been really enjoying it. I really like kind of how psychological it is, how it gets in your head, and how uncomfortable it is watching what Scott Free is going through, you know? Like, he's been really put through the ringer here, man. Like, because he doesn't know whether he's well or not. He doesn't know whether he thinks he's crazy. And everybody wants him to stand up and carry on fighting, and he can't do it. And it's just like we're just watching him slowly disintegrate. And especially in number 4 as well. Like issue 4, where, as you said, like they've got everyone in the living room and they're having the trial. And there's a great moment that I like is where he gets up and grabs a carrot from the veg platter. Tips it in the hummus. I quite enjoyed that bit. I'm getting a carrot. But like it's like the formality, and then at the same time it's the informality of it all, you know? And
well, it's like Leon said, there's these situations he's in which are like life-changing, life-threatening, or jeopardizing to the situation. Yeah. And he's so nonchalant about the position that he's being put in, because he's kind of just floating through this life that he's not entirely sure that he wants anymore. I think that's a running theme about his self-harming. He just doesn't care. And we don't know. It feels like he just doesn't care about his circumstances. And the way that these things come across, like making the decision to have this trial in his own living room, and just the strangeness of this big grand thing that's happening in a really mundane setting. And these the decisions that the writers make for this are really interesting. Like normally, like, because it uses the term paranoid pill a lot. And I think that really resonates with me. Like, there's something about this work that makes me feel paranoid just reading it in a really good way. Like, I feel dislocated while I'm reading it because, like Leon said, it hops around through the different time periods, or, you know, you're never quite 100% sure of the timeline or whether things are real or not. Based on, sometimes the framing is really clever. Like when Scott Free's talking to somebody sat on his couch, but there's a panel divider between him and the person he's talking to, and it kind of gives you this sense that maybe he's there or maybe he's not. Like it's open to you to interpret what that means. And normally I don't like this kind of dislocation paranoia in other mediums. Like, for example, in TV, I think something that has in some ways similar vibe is like Mr. Robot, which I may have talked about before, where it really didn't work for me because I felt like it wasn't respectful of my time. Whereas in a comic book or in literature, when it's giving you this paranoid vibe, you can take it at your own pace. And I think with this comic especially, like, you can take your time poring over all the details and just like drinking it in, and just the way that it takes you out of yourself. I think it's superb.
Legion kind of does this a little bit as well. Have you ever seen the TV show Legion?
Which is another one that Leon's been getting on me to watch, so I'll definitely give that a try.
Yeah, Legion is definitely that. Like, this is one that I've said when recommending it to you, Rahul, whereas, like, I don't know if you're going to like it.
I'll certainly give it a try. But
yeah, it's definitely worth it.
I think I prefer Legion to Mr. Robot when I've watched the two.
Yeah, I would say so as well.
I get the feeling I will
Yeah.
just from the subject
But
matter.
this book is it's just this issue, particularly issue 4. I mean, I can't talk too much about it in too much detail because I'd spoil it for you guys. But it's like when Leon was talking about the questioning that was happening, like these quick fire questions that are designed to take him in a certain direction and make him come to certain conclusions and put him in a certain predicament, because he's the escape artist that he is. It's you know, it's almost like Orion is testing him, like, escape from this, you know, get out of this one kind of thing. Like put him in rather than trying to escape from physical bonds and things like that, he's trying to escape from some kind of verbal trap. Yeah,
like being led down this path. He had because he's being guided down to the wrong.
And
answer.
I just really enjoyed the way that the whole book is laid out, and the fact that most of it is in that 9-panel format.
Yeah, which I just love.
Yeah. And it's it doesn't even need to do much. It doesn't even need to change. You know, it doesn't need to. It's all taking place in one room. Majority of it is taking place in one room, which is what I love comics that do that.
I just want to shout out some of the meta commentary. I think it's in issue 3, where it's like Darkseid is, which happens to pop up on panels quite a lot, especially in the first 2 issues, and he starts thinking about it, and he's just like, Darkseid is like, and he's just like, I bet it doesn't mean anything. But it just sounds cool. Well, that was a pretty nice little wink towards what we're doing. Also, the cover for
the big Barda.
There's an alt cover. It's like Barda's the main cover, but the alt cover for 4, which is sort of profile shot of Mr. Miracle in the where he's got the colours on, but where his brain would be is it's like drawn like chemical reactions with like crazy color, like, but behind the yellow you've got like green and red, like the colors, but they're all done in a sort of like bubbly reaction, and it floats past the back of his head. And I thought it's such a great visualization of what's going on in the book. So yeah, I'm quite a fan of that.
100%.
It's so abstract as well. Like if you glance at it, you could almost like not understand what it's trying to be until you kind of hold it at arm's length.
Yeah. And it's like the bubbles and things are like a riff on Kirby dots. Which I just, I Kirby Crackle, which I really like that cover. But unfortunately, I haven't got the alt cover. I've got the standard cover, which is just as cool because it's a kind of mugshot of Big Barda and a staff in front of her face. And I think it's a really cool cover anyway. So I'm happy with that one. So you guys read anything else?
Yeah, I'll quickly run through my next one, which is Titans: The Wonderful World of Tank Girl. Tank Girl Strikes Again. So I saw this come up on a list of recently released, and I read some Tank Girl in the past, like many moons ago, and I thought, I wonder what Tank Girl's up to now, and if she's still culturally relevant, because for me it feels like a very sort of 90s ideal with a cool sort of like punk badass like action heroine who just shoots first and doesn't talk or just quips. So I want to know what was up, and then I noticed that one of the writers on the story is Alan Martin, who is the co-creator of Tank Girl, along with Jamie Hewlett of Tank Girl / Gorillaz fame. So I thought, okay, this will be interesting. I mean, if the creator's still writing it, like, as he's still got new juice, and yeah, it's quite an interesting book. I mean, it really does feel it's weird tone wise, but because it does feel like a sort of fun teen book. And you've got like the crew, obviously the aforementioned Tank Girl. You've got Boogo, who's like the dog-like dude, Jet Girl and Sub Girl, and they've got a little heist planned, and things go awry and pear-shaped and all manners of like wrong. But it's weird because the tone has this still like fun sort of riding rockets and driving tanks about and things blowing up and like great gunfire onomatopoeia like duffer duffer, smacker smacker, bracker bracker, and like you have like surfboard guns. It's like it's ridiculous, but it's like it's ridiculous fun. But it's just weird because the tone of it and the art style are sort of what you'd feel like, this is like teen rated. But I was thinking like this is Tank Girl. This ain't teen rated. Yeah, and then later on it gets like really brutal, but jumps back and forth between like brutal torture, but also like fun, crazy, like we don't need to reload, like backflips in the air and smashing through the walls, shooting, and it's like it somehow successfully marries those tones. It's a really odd book, but it has shades of what I remember of the tone, but of Tank Girl before. But like it feels a bit more modernized in some ways, while also still feeling like a fragment of the past. It's an odd book, and like the way the characters talk, it is that whole classic like rhymey, cutesy talking, and a lot of like weird anecdotes and like silly names. So like the main antagonist of this book is a dude called Ronnie Dosmond, and he's the one they're going to rob, and he caught his willy in a revolving door.
That's why he's scared of banks, because he...
Yeah. And they really frame it as being just this crazy adventure that I mean, because this feels like it's a one shot, and it's just a weird hijinks that they pretty much wrap stuff up for this particular story in the issue, and it has quite a lot of dark humor. But yeah, it's like I wasn't expecting, or more so, I was forgetting about the brutality, and it really is like so like Guantanamo, or like brutal like torture, but. I know, it's fun. Like, I'm unsure if I would continue with it, more so just because like I'm more into sort of serialized storytelling. So if there's a big story, I might be drawn in more. But yeah, as a one-off, I'm unsure if I'd go back. But I would recommend people read this issue just because, again, it's just irreverent, offbeat, sort of classic Tank Girl, but in a sort of 2017 skin. So yeah, it's worth giving it a read, and just sort of floating away and just spending some time with these crazy people.
Yeah, I had a quick read of it and I enjoyed it. I read through it and I thought it was great fun. It was just like a really loud, really fun, really punk, in your face comic, and it's what you want, and it's really British as well.
Yeah,
which I think I enjoyed about it as well. The fact that it's just, you know, I quite like it when I see things that are overtly British in comics, as in like British humour and stuff, because I think it well, it's obviously because we're British, so we're gonna you know, it's nice to see that British humour has a place in the medium. And it's nice to see it working so well and being so popular. Yeah, and
it's nice that they've not tried to sanitize the character.
Exactly, yeah.
But like, I have to give a shout out to Chris Wall's alternative cover, which has Tank Girl as the main focus, and like the rest of her team are like little cherubs, sort of brushing her hair and applying plasters. So it's a pretty cool image. Like,
it is a nice cover.
Yeah, I think we're in an age where we're spoiled for like poster-worthy covers.
Yeah, everything everything for the past couple of weeks. Actually, there's a few comics I've bought that I would like. I could blow that up and stick it on a poster. Or I would love a print of that to hang on my wall, kind of thing. Like the Mr. Miracle covers you mentioned, and I really enjoyed that Turtles cover I talked about, where it's basically the secret of the ooze, but with added Ghostbusters. And I guess the main Mr. Miracle cover as well, the Big Barda one would be nice as a poster. There's a few really cool Batman covers that they've had actually, from the Dark Knights, the Dark Knights ones, the Dark Knights one shots. The covers on those have been pretty cool. Especially the Dawnbreaker cover would be one that I'd want, with the it's sort of standing there, kind of like Jesus Christ cross pose type thing, with like all of his dark shadow creations behind him, because whereas a normal lantern would use that ring to create things out of light, he uses his for shadow, which I think is really cool. But yeah, no, so yeah, definitely a year for poster worthy covers, I think. Anybody got anything left on the list?
Right, so we've all read Number One with a Bullet.
It is,
right?
Yes.
Okay. I believe this was Leon's suggestion, or he was the initiator for this one. Do you have any initial thoughts on that, Leon?
I do, but like just following on from what you were saying, Greg, in terms of poster-worthy covers, the cover for Number One with a Bullet, Image is a new comic written by Jacob Saman, and the artist is Jorge Corona, and I'm going to give shout-outs to the colorist Jen Hickman and the letterer and designer Steve Wands, because all of these guys are like doing overtime on the presentation of this comic. I mean, the cover has this cool sort of it's a close-up of the lead character's face, Nash Huang, and it's all like purpley fuchsia, and anyone who's listened to the show knows I love my purple and fuchsia type colors. But then over her eyes, she's got like these sort of virtual green hands, and I mean, in ways, it's a heavy-handed metaphor for what it feels like the book's going to be about. But it's a striking image nonetheless. But just to briefly go over the plot, it's basically about a production assistant at a tech company who lives her life in this sort of digital social media led world, pretty similar to what we're living in reality, but then things take a dark turn while she's out with some friends, and ultimately the first issue ends with like not going into super detail, but it's a story that feels like it's going in the direction of revenge porn and the theft and uploading of like personal videos and images, and like the whole presentation of this book, even right at the beginning, on the inside of the cover, where you have like all the art, all the people who've worked on the comic. It shows their Twitter handles, and there's like bubbles or like tweet-like and Instagram-esque boxes, and it is very much seems to be asking the question of like is there no longer jurisdiction on personal data? And it's explicit in talking about our current, ours as in society's current outlooks on this. So there's a lot of talk before, like the characters discussing someone whose emails have been hacked, and because the the person who's a tangential friend said something racist in there. They're having a whole debate on like who's the real victim, and the lead character is pretty much victim blaming, saying like, this is the world we live in now. There's people who hack, so you're silly to put up there, which is similar to a lot of the things that we heard in the media in 2014 and beyond then, with the big iCloud like hacks of a lot of celebrities' personal pictures that were uploaded, and it was deemed what was the Reddit name, the fappening. So like it's covering a lot of that ground, but it's done in an interesting frame, because this is a world where you have like contact lenses which can like film video and stuff, and it's set like 20 minutes in the future in some ways, and it's dealing with how we as a society will relate to that stuff, and how we will like what does that world look like when like privacy is like one hack away from not existing. And this all a really sort of 90s MTV-esque style, with like lots of bold color. So one of the earlier panels has like on earlier pages has a very popping Watchmen yellow going on that I very much appreciate. But it does remind me of like an Aeon Fluxy The Max type cartoon, but also there's like a lot of shades of like anime in there as well. Maybe like Dead Leaves-esque animation style. So yeah, it's quite an interesting book, and they it's a very much an image book as well, which if you read image books, you know what the sort of connotation there is, like positively. Like it has this very sort of not punk, but it's very sort of indie feel of like we're going to do something cool and we got a message, and like you're going to want to read this because the cover looks awesome and has purple on it. Like that is very much like the image template for the comics that I like that they do, which is a long list. But yeah, no, it seems like it's touching on a lot of these issues, like I was saying before, in terms of the leaking of data, but it's also what it's like being a woman in surrounded in these issues, from a lot of the conversations that Nash has with people. And like her boss seems kind of like sleazy when she mentions that she's going home to her girlfriend, and he makes a sort of he has a sort of sleazy tone about all lesbians type thing. And it's the first panels of the book are her on a TV show with her boss, and they're like demoing this AR technology using the new contact lenses, and she's at home with her girlfriend watching Jaws, being a complete douche, by the way, like just on Twitter the whole time. But yeah, and she's like looking at all the replies, and they are the classic, there is a woman, I'm going to make some like gross comments on these. So, and it's very much quite a cool exploration of that, while not really, doesn't really feel preachy. Instead, it just seems like it's texture for the world, because
that's
I mean, it feels very so, yeah, exactly. Like it doesn't feel foreign. Yeah. But what it's done is, by giving this cool sort of tech sci-future angle, it feels like it's dealing with what the implications of a lot of these things are going to be. And I think that the presentation of the art is really cool. There's often a lot of where like it's like the page is blank and the panels are sort of cut out at obtuse angles, and it's almost like a storyboard for a like not live action, but like an animation, where there's like jumps in action. So it's not like it's following on and setting up, but it really does give you a sense of like place and time which is quite cool. But overall, I recommend this. I definitely say the first issue is worth a read because it has a nice hook towards the end, and there's some weirdness in there, and I always appreciate some weirdness. And it feels like it's about this thing, but it also feels like it's more. And the only downside, I'd say, of this issue has nothing to do with the comic side of it, but there is like a little letter by the writer sort of talking about his intentions. And with stuff like that, I mean, I can understand why it's there, but I'd rather that be like some interview that he's done elsewhere, or like, I don't know, supplementary materials for the trade, because I'd rather like he just speak through the book.
Yeah.
Which I was picking up. But he gets more explicit and overt about some of his intentions there. So, but yeah, I'd recommend it. Give it a read. Well, what do you guys think?
I really enjoyed it. I mean, it made me feel uncomfortable, which I think was its goal, because I'm quite, when it comes to being online and sharing of information and things like that, I'm quite a paranoid person where stuff like this is concerned. Like the barrier between your privacy and what the world can see is so thin and so easily breakable, so fragile. And it's something that I think about on a regular basis, actually. And then to have it put in front of me in a comic, it set me off. But no, I enjoyed the book. I enjoyed it, but I'm not sure if I've got the stomach to carry on reading it. That's the problem, because it makes me feel uncomfortable, but it makes me feel uncomfortable in a good way. I guess it reminds me that you need to be careful of this kind of stuff, because you do. Because it happens to everyone. Your personal information is all there for everyone. It's like, I mean, I guess this is, I don't know, I don't back things up onto clouds or anything, or I don't do that, and this is exactly why I don't do that. I don't trust anything like that. But I mean, what I thought was cool about the artwork was, especially at the beginning when they're in the television studio, and the abstraction of it, and the fact that the audience are reduced to these really like devious looking grins.
These cackling demons
on like black shadow background, and it's just like, Jesus, that's so good, so true. When you watch these kinds of things on TV and whatever, and it's like the whole sort of uneasiness of it, like her demoing this tech is like ritual humiliation. Because,
that's why I was getting that real sort of Dead Leaves-ish vibe.
Yeah, and but like even down to the way she's treated by her boss, like her demoing this tech is ritual humiliation, and it's like the world, they're using her as some kind of clown, and she's an object, and she's being treated as an object, and then that comes up again with the Twitter feed, like you talked about. The whole world is viewing her as this kind of like this object or whatever kind of thing, rather than as a person, which is uncomfortable. And it goes in. I guess the writer goes into that a little bit in his little letter at the end as well, in the way that we seem to have stripped the humanity away from everything, and we are just the sum of what we upload and leave behind, our digital trail, so to speak, and that we as people don't seem to be factored into it when our private information is released in that way. You don't. I mean,
you bring up the point of you don't upload stuff to the cloud, but like you don't know what's going into the cloud. And Nash, the main character in this, seems like extremely blasé about what she puts out into the world. And I think one thing we haven't covered, I don't know if you guys were deliberately avoiding this for spoilers, but there is a slightly more sinister theme going on, like right in the very first page. So I don't feel like it's a spoiler, but it starts with what looks to be the suicide of Nash's number one fan, which I think is partly where the title comes from, Your Number One with a Bullet. And I wonder where that ties in to this whole... Like, it kind of gives me vibes of Black Mirror, because you talk about the ritualistic humiliation, reminds me of one of the episodes from season 2.
It is very Black Mirror.
Yeah.
And the recording from the contact lenses is very much like the entire history of you, I think, from season 1 of Black Mirror.
Yeah.
There's a lot of this, like Leon said, 20 minutes into the future, sinister underpinnings of modern technology. And yeah, I'm really curious to see where this goes, and if it takes it into its own direction.
Which, I mean,
instead of
sorry, I interrupted you there. Carry on.
No, just to say, instead of taking from things that have already existed, like Black Mirror, I want to see if it has its own spin on the topic.
See, the thing that I found interesting as well is the fact that this contact lens technology, Sony have actually filed a patent for that, apparently. So it's not something that's entirely out. I mean, it seems super futuristic and super, it's not something that when I read about it, it doesn't seem attainable. It seems like something that I will probably never see in my lifetime when I read about things like contact lens technology. But then I forget that, like as I'm reminded at the end of the book, that Sony have filed a patent for this. This is a thing that people are actually working on, So yeah, the 20 minutes into the future thing. It's all very real.
Absolutely, Sony aren't the only ones who own
obviously
property,
not, but
like intellectual property on this, and you will see this in your lifetime.
Yeah, it's just something. It makes me uncomfortable. I don't know why it makes me uncomfortable. It just does. The things like this always make me uncomfortable.
Terrifying.
Things like this are terrifying to me. They always make me uncomfortable.
Because when we look at our mobile phones, and we, again, like you said, we don't think we're uploading stuff to a server, but we're constantly uploading something to a server. And if you have something seeing your point of view constantly and recording it to an unknown entity, that's the stuff of horror in my eyes.
Yeah, I don't like that at all.
Keep your eyes closed, Craig, just all the time.
No, it's not good for me, stuff like this. It really isn't. It's really not good for me.
Well, one quick point I wanted to make was I was really intrigued by the title because I didn't really understand where it fit in until I went back and looked at the first page. But I like the idea that number one with a bullet can mean a fast-moving single song on the Billboard charts. So it's rising quickly to the top. So that kind of fits in with this theme of this data that can run away from you and spread to people without any control. And also it's impossible to stop. You can't stop it from hitting number one. You can't stop this information from being spread to everybody that you know. I thought that was kind of clever.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think there's a lot of fertile ground to be explored with this comic if done right.
100%. I was impressed with this first issue, and I am interested to see where it goes. And it does make me feel uncomfortable in the best possible way. So yeah, I like stuff that actually does things like that to me. So yeah, no, definitely I will be one to watch. So Ray, The Beautiful Death.
Yeah, so this is a comic that I picked up a couple of months ago. So now we've got issues 1 and 2 available, and I believe issue 3 is out on the 15th of November, which is when this podcast should air. Yeah, The Beautiful Death. It's by Mathieu Bablet, or Bablet. I'm not sure how you pronounce his surname. He does the art and the writing for this. But the thing that caught my eye was issue number 1 had a cover by Brandon Graham of King City fame, which I think I may have talked about before. The interesting thing is that the artwork that Brandon Graham does for this cover is actually a lot more bland and boring than what you actually find inside, having been done by Mathieu Bablet himself. So let me roll back a second. So it's basically a story about post-apocalypse, which I know we've talked about a bunch before, but bear with me because I really want you guys to check this one out. So the opening blurb says, "The world has ended, the world as we know it at least. The insects came, they won." But the interesting thing about this story is that you barely see the insects. It's more about the aftermath of a apocalypse that's happened on the world, which hasn't destroyed the infrastructure, hasn't destroyed buildings. It's just there seems to be no life
decimated
other than
the population.
Decimated, more than decimated. It's we basically open on it's a cold open on one man, kind of like 28 Days Later, where we see him wandering around this desolate nondescript city, surrounded by skyscrapers and really densely packed empty buildings, where it feels like everyone's just got up and left in a rush. And it's him all alone making the decision to leave the safety of this outpost that he's made for himself, seemingly the last man on Earth. And so we follow him for a little while as he reminisces on these childhood stories about like reminiscing on eating shit cakes made by a scary neighbor and reflecting on how that made him feel as a kid. And then suddenly we're introduced to 3 new survivors who are on the front cover of the book. So clearly this guy isn't the last man on Earth. There are people around. We see this trio who they seemingly haven't encountered another human in months. And so we get these action scenes of them basically surviving, and without any particular indication of the time frame for any of this. So we see scenes of them sprinting away from these unseen insects where all we see is the onomatopoeia of them like scritching through the corners, but we never actually get a good look at what these insects are. We do, however, see what we would consider normal insects, so like regular cockroaches and regular centipedes just strewn everywhere, just like tucked into the corners or across the walls. And it's just really disconcerting. And we've basically flashed through different scenes of them surviving. So we see them arguing over wasting spoiled cans of food, or chilling in abandoned, unusable cars just because they thought it would be a nice break for once to sit behind a car that they'll never get to drive again.
Okay.
Or like reluctantly saving each other from certain death, despite it going against some unwritten rule that they talk about afterwards. Like there's some really interesting moments where they do a thing, but they don't explain the thing, and you just kind of have to deal with the fact that this is their life now, and you're kind of picking up the pieces of what their new societal rules for just the 3 of them are. So we kind of get a really broad picture of this trio from all of this without really learning their names in issue 1. I think we do in issue 2 at some point, but I don't want to get too deep into that. And as for the fate of the first man that I mentioned, you're going to have to read the book to find out what happens to him. So, like, the artwork for this is it's totally my thing. It feels like a dirty watercolor painting in motion. So all of these characters are drawn in really exaggerated shapes, often veering towards anime-esque, where their facial features are becoming like slightly misproportioned compared to fairly regulated. I wouldn't say realistic, but at least trending towards realism backgrounds. And they're stuffed with detail. It kind of reminds me of, what was that, the Aliens book we read? Dead Orbit by James Niko. Yeah, and you said you liked how much detail he puts into the backgrounds. Yeah. I feel like I bounced off that because all the detail was just him letting his pen run wild. Whereas Mathieu Bablet in this one, I feel like there's so much detail because there's a density to the landscapes we get of this, what must have been a metropolitan city at some point, but has now just been left to waste. And so each scene kind of has a different coloured wash over it in that watercolour sense, going from these cool, grimy nighttime blues to these murky sunrise reds and rainy, muted browns. And the interesting thing is the flow of action for this story is really clever, because you get these panel transitions that are really dense, where we get lots of panels dedicated to relatively brief moments. Like I said, there's scenes of them running through an abandoned shopping mall, and it's trying to run away from danger, but also trying to grab resources at the same time. And we get these really small panels, snippets of the things that they're running past, and just like snapshots of the world that's been left behind that they're zooming their way through. But then, after you've had a couple of pages dedicated to what must have only been about 30 seconds of time, the colours shift and the time shifts as well into in a way that you can't really tell whether it's been hours or days or weeks or months. And it's just really interesting how abrupt that happens, and because there tends not to be any connective tissue between the two, so you get this sense of a vignette of their days surviving, and like you're just being fed the choice moments. And it kind of reminds me of, I don't know if you guys have played The Last of Us, which also did something really interesting with its transitions between the different seasons, but not quite as stark. Like, it does this thing where it feels like all the interesting things are happening inside the transition that you don't get to see, and then all you're left with is like the moments of humanity that they're just wandering around this town, not really quite knowing what to do with themselves except just not die. And that's what I have to say on issue 1. I mean, issue 2 opens where issue 1 ends, where they briefly settle down against their regularly nomadic lifestyle. And without giving too much away, we kind of get more insight into what makes this trio tick. We get glimpses into their beliefs and their selfish behavior or their selfless behavior. And yeah, I don't want to spoil it. I think you guys should pick this up. I think it's great.
No, it's one that, I mean, I think you've recommended it to me on numerous occasions. It's one that I've been meaning to try, but I've just not gotten around to.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, it's only 2 issues in, and so I don't think you've got a lot to catch up on. And I think you can make your mind up whether it's for you or not based on these two. I'll definitely be picking up number 3 on Wednesday.
Yeah. Speaking of Wednesday, I think it's time for us to dive into what we are looking forward to. So these are things that will be released on Wednesday the 15th of November. So I've got my pull list on here, and I know Ray's got a list of things that he's looking forward to. So Ray, you want to kick off and go through your list?
Yeah, so like I said, Beautiful Death number 3, Mech Cadet U
which
number 4.
is on my list as well.
Clue number 6, just because I've started, so I have to finish, although I haven't actually read 3, 4, and 5, but I'll catch up on that. Lark's Killer number 4, which, is that on yours as well,
No,
Greg?
I'm not reading Lark's Killer at the moment.
Sorry, just to roll back a second, Clue number 6 is on the 22nd of November, and Lark's Killer number 4 is also on the 22nd of November. And one I missed from the 15th is something that I picked up literally just on the title alone. I have no idea what it's about. Minky Woodcock, the girl who handcuffed Houdini, issue number 1. I'm going to pick it up just based on the title.
I read a bit about this. It's like a detective style story, isn't it? Or it's going to be. Something detective-y, I think, if I remember if I'm remembering what I read correctly, because I mean it's one that I looked at and was kind of intrigued by the title as well, and kind of looked for a blurb basically and gave it a little bit of a read. But yeah, I mean it's interesting. You mentioned not being able to catch up on stuff. It's a real struggle that when you buy Comics Weekly and you don't get time to sometimes read stuff, and it's just I've had piles and piles of things where, I mean, I read like 3 or 4 issues of Venomverse at once to catch up. So with my list, we have Batman 35, which is the continuation of the regular Batman story. It's basically Batman going to tell Talia al Ghul that he's marrying Catwoman, whether she likes it or not. You've got the Batman Who Laughs one shot, which is one that I've been looking forward to. It's part of the metal event, and that's going to give us some insight into the creepy Hellraiser-ish Batman Who Laughs. So I'm quite interested to see what happens and what direction they're going with him. Justice League number 33, which is a tie-in for the metal event. You've got Wonder Woman Conan number 3, TMNT Ghostbusters number 3, TMNT Ongoing number 76, and we're going to get some Triteratons. We've got Curse Words number 10, Generation Gone number 5, Kill the Minotaur number 6, Realm number 3, which, going on the theme of post-apocalyptic stories, it's another post-apocalyptic story, this time kind of D&D meets The Last of Us, I guess is the best way to describe it. You've got Retcon number 3 and Peter Parker Spectacular Spider-Man 297, which would actually, I can't remember what number it would actually be now because I'm all confused, because Marvel have decided they're going to renumber all of their stuff. So it's Marvel have done this legacy numbering now where everything has now gone back to its original numbering. So it's now Peter Parker Spectacular Spider-Man 297 instead of what it would have been. So I guess that wraps us up now. We're at the end of our lists. So this has been Ace Comicals number 22. So you can find us on iTunes. You can find us pretty much everywhere now, can't you, Ray?
Yeah, we finally uploaded everything to everything.
Yeah.
It seems we got it on Pocket Cast, we got it on Stitcher, because I spent some time trying to get this all uploaded. So it's on Apple, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Stitcher, TuneIn, and Castro, whatever the hell that is. I just saw that for the first time right now. So the world's your oyster. Download us from wherever the hell you want.
Whatever you use to listen to podcasts, I'm sure we're there, with the exception of Google, because that's not available in our neck of the woods yet. So You can also find us at www.acecomicals.com. You can find us at acecomicals.wordpress.com. You can find us on Instagram under Ace Comicals. You can find us on Facebook under Ace Comicals. You can find us on Twitter at Ace Comicals. You can find me on Twitter at BATTOU, Bato. Guys, where can we find you?
You can find me at Monkeh, so that's at MOONKEH.
And you can find me at Leon Everett on Twitter.
And if you want to field us a question, you can either field it to the Ace Comicals Twitter account, DM at whichever way you want to do it, reply, or you can send us an email to acecomicals@gmail.com, and we will answer your question on our next show. We like questions. Please send us some questions. So that has been Ace Comicals number 22. So Ace Comicals, over and out.